Hello, everyone. My name is RaulHerrera. I am the Vice President of Ahupeme USA. I am also the California State Delegate. Here in California, we established our association and delegation in the San Fernando Valley, particularly in the city of San Fernando, which is in the territory of the San Fernandino Tatavian Band of Mission Indians. We were able to work and collaborate with both the city of San Fernando and the Tatavian on to commemorate the summer solstice of June 20th, 2019. It is an honor to be a part of the fifth annual summit, the Movement Towards Social Justice and Public Health, organized by CAPA, California Alcohol Policy Alliance. I would like to talk a little bit about who we are and what we represent. And we represent an association known as Ahupeme. And Ahupeme stands for Asociación Juego de Pelota Mesoamericano. This is an ancient indigenous sport that is played throughout the Western Hemisphere. Many indigenous peoples have played this sport. It is known by various names depending as to the language. Northern tribes here in the United States also play variations of this ball game. It's known as ulama, and again, there are some variations that are still played today. Some people call it handball, which is played with a small rubber ball, right? However, our version of ulama is known as ulamalisli. This particular sport has a solid rubber ball, right, which is very heavy for the standards of different balls sizes, and so the balls can weigh anywhere between 2 pounds for categories of children, and they can weigh up to 10 pounds for categories of adult males in professional tournaments. So I have an example of one of the balls. This ball is made out of pure rubber, hence the word in Spanish, hule, comes from the word in Nahuatl called uli, and that's why it's called ulamalistli. And this particular rubber ball is solid, and so it is made out of the Saiba rubber trees, and so and it's played with the hip. So there are different variations. There's some that you hit with your hands. You can punch it. You can hit it with your elbows. You can use your knees. But the version that I represent through Ahupeme is known as hip ball, which is strictly played with the hip. Now, the part of our association, right, is a way of trying to preserve the indigenous integrity and cultural traditions and the way and that the sport was played thousands of years ago. This game is the oldest sport in the world to use a rubber ball. It is the precursor to many different sports that are out there. It definitely is one of the precursors to basketball and football and soccer. And so this particular sport, right, has and was the most popular throughout Mesoamerica. And so alone in Mexico, there are approximately 2,000 ball courts that have been unearthed and been discovered. And there are some ball courts that we know of here in the United States, one of them being in Arizona. So there are different variations, like I mentioned, and so yet this particular ball game has managed to endure and survive the Spanish invasion and the colonization as Europeans invaded Mesoamerica based on the doctrine of discovery. Many of the traditions were destroyed and forbidden. So this led to many people finding ways to conceal and hide and preserve and ways to prevent them from disappearing and becoming extinct. So, in the sake and the objective of trying to decolonize and trying to uh, teach people our history and our culture, it is also important to understand the way that our ancestors played this sport. So, in reference to how it's related to this particular summit, our ancestors uh, had a particular understanding of how this game would be played, and this the way that our ancestors played this sport was it was supposed to symbolically represent the celestial movements, right, in the sky, because the ball itself represented the sun, and this transition between night and day, right, uh, was the celestial part of the way our ancestors understood time and space. And therefore, it was very important that players were very coherent as to, um, you know, uh, the direction of the ball, because the ball in itself, again, it's quite heavy. The ball that I demonstrated weighs approximately 5 pounds, while the other balls can weigh up to 10 pounds. So it's very important that when a player is playing, that they're concentrating, that they are focused on the direction of this ball, because being under the influence of any type of drug or any type of alcohol could definitely affect and potentially even injure a player, especially if a ball is being hit, you know, at a high velocity. And some of the more experienced players can hit the ball, anywhere between 40 and 50 feet, across the field with just their hip. And so the velocity of that ball could be very um, dangerous if you are not ready for where that ball is going to bounce. So I want to be able to share some slides and some videos here with you, and then also a video that also kind of explains some of the work that we've been doing here in the San Fernando Valley throughout our 1 year anniversary, right? So I'm going to share some slides and some footage here with you as well. So this is an introduction to Mesoamerican hip ball. We do numerous cultural workshops and orientations, especially to youth, at-risk youth. We've done presentations right throughout the San Fernando Valley at different colleges, different universities, high schools, to at-risk youth groups like Tuchint, and through also the San Bernardino Tataviam youth groups there, known as the Education and Cultural Learning Department for the Tataviam people. Like I mentioned, the Mesoamerican ball game is approximately 4,000 years old. It was played by the Olmec people, who are also known as the rubber people. They are the ones who invented this sport. The Mayans also played this sport. If you have the opportunity to visit, places like Quintana Roo, or Xcaret, you're going to find that there are still people playing this sport. Many states today are continuing to preserve this sport. In the Mayan language, it's known as Pok, right? And like I mentioned earlier, in the Nahuatl language, it's known as Ulamalistli or Ulama, which we kind of know it as today. And so, again, the word ule or the word uli comes from the word ule, which means rubber in Spanish. So the rubber ball is usually a ball that is carried, in in a net or in some type of container, and it always has to remain hanging, because since it is pure rubber, if you leave it flat on its bottom, it will get distorted, and so it is a solid piece of rubber. And so many of the ball courts, have hoops, right? And depending as to the different variations, there are many documents that have preserved this sport, whether it's in codices or amoshlis, or in paintings and murals, even post-colonial codices. You might have, different friars and people trying to document the history of the sport. So as you notice, many of the images that you might see here, the individuals are only wearing what would look kind of like a loincloth, what we call afajado, right? Sometimes there are statues still today. This is a very typical body stance as you are trying to hit the ball. You want to avoid touching it with your hands, because like soccer, you're not allowed to have hands unless you are throwing the ball in, right, or at the same time retrieving the ball to then to bring it back into game. So there are different, again, stylized, that show different images of how this sport was played. You do a lot of squatting down, right? And again, you do a lot of hitting with the ball. So there are, here in California, we do have 4 teams. We have teams for children, for teenagers, for women, and for men. And this game was played throughout, many different families and many different cultures. And there were different rules depending as to where you were situated. You know, the rules did vary, right? However, today, the association that I represent, Ahupeme, has established certain guidelines and certain rules so that we can continue to play not only throughout the United States, but we are an international association. So every state now in Mexico, right, has a delegation. We also have delegations in Central America. We have delegations in Europe. We are about to establish a delegation in Canada and in Puerto Rico. And the Salvadorian consulate has also joined Ahupeme, and we are hoping to establish, Central American Salvadorian teams as well. Because again, of the importance of trying to preserve this cultural identity and the integrity of the sport is very essential, because it's very different from other types of sports where you may have the idea that you can yell out profanity against your opposing team or even to your own players when you're upset about a move. These are things that are considered red flags and points that can count against you, to the point that your team could be dismissed for using profanity, or even consuming alcohol or being under the influence, right? And so therefore this could lead to your disqualification and even removal of out of Ahupeme overall. So like I mentioned to you, this sport tries to preserve the cultural traditions and integrity, right? So corporate sponsors regarding alcohol, that's something that is not happening. And part of what we are also trying to do is preserve the traditional regalia, right, that is used. They're not costumes, they're regalia. And so a part of it is trying to make sure that our cultural traditions are not appropriated either by corporations or businesses, or by individuals who culturally appropriate, traditions that are sacred, that have meaning and value, more than just you know more than just a product. So at one point, like I mentioned, this is the most popular sport. This is one of there are different ball game courts that are out there. Some have actually walls, some have steps. And so this is a training facility that is found in Belize. This is the Mesoamerican ball game. Again, like I mentioned, the balls can vary from anywhere between 2 to 10 pounds, depending on his team and the age category. This gentleman here, his name is Tomas Subia. He is our our, our California and our USA trainer. The ball that I have here is the one on the far left, which is all white. As you see, the colors of the ball start to discolor, right? They get darker from constant use. In addition to that, they also get smoother, right? Because of the way that they're played. So the ball is again symbolic of the sun. We use incense. We usually open up acknowledging the four directions, rather the six directions, all cardinal points included, right? So the ball courts, right, have have usually the shape of a capital I, right? And depending as to where the ball court may be, like they might actually be in the shape of almost of the symbolic image of the zero, right? In the Mesoamerican culture, which looks a lot like a football, the American football, right? So we have the farthest northern ball court is in Arizona, and I apologize if I pronounced the name incorrectly. It's Upakti. This is National Monument in Arizona, and so this is an example of the ball courts. In addition to that, you can kind of see this is the one that you find here in Arizona. Some of them again have high walls. They're diagonal and they have hoops. So sometimes the players will run up to the high walls and try to score a point, right? There are various courts throughout, like I said, Mesoamerica, the largest one being at Chichen Itza, which actually has 13 ball courts. And this is a very elite sport that was played here. Elite teams played throughout Chichen Itza, right, in the state of Chiapas in Mexico, right? So as you can see, this is the immense ball court that you might find, right? And so the hoops are very high, taller than what you would see a street light pole, right? Just so that you can kind of try to imagine the height of that. Like I said, there are murals and there are pottery, right? These stories go back all the way from the time of the Popol Vuh, right? And so there are different rules, like I said, but one of the rules that, again, I want to be able to clarify is that, we had established certain rules in order to, again, preserve the integrity and the tradition of the sport. And part of that is making sure that our players are coherent and responsive uh, of of what their actions are going to take place in this ball court. This is a traditional sacred sport. So in many ways, the consuming of alcohol is not something that is allowed, and it's not allowed primarily also because within Mesoamerican cultures, the consumption of alcohol was not something that was even allowed for people under the age of 52. So people over the age of 52 were allowed to consume alcohol, and yet it was also used by some of the elite nobles, during celebrations. And it's not like today where you might find sports that encourage, the consumption of alcohol for not just the players, but even the spectators. And so I want us to be able to understand that, today, in many ways, our cultural identity, our cultural traditions are usually uh, reinforce macho sexist ideals. They reinforce a lot of Mexican nationalism, or a lot of nationalism in general, based on how much alcohol you can consume, based on what type of alcohol brand you consume, right? That allegedly represents your nationalism, and that represents your masculinity or your strength. And so, this is something that, again, I will not try to highlight which specific corporations or brands do this, but we understand that the theft of our culture is something that is common. We find this in Day of the Dead. We find this happening still today, where you have corporations promoting and hijacking our culture. And so in hopes of trying to preserve that cultural integrity, in hopes of trying to preserve this tradition and this ancestral sport and the mythology and the symbolism that this sport has has left for our future generations, we hope that we can continue to do that in the most humblest way as possible. So I'm going to go just quickly and kind of, highlight this sport kind of reemerged back in 1968, right? When the Olympics emerged in Mexico City. And so they opened up their Olympics exhibition using this sport of ulama. And so this was a very big eye opener for many who had never seen this sport before. Our association was established by Reina Puc and Armando Osario Oscanga, right? And they, again, represent our association, right, which is an international association. If you ever have the opportunity to go to Quintana Roo or to Xcaret, you're going to find this statue and other statues of ulama players, and they are all modeled off of Armando Osario Oscanga. Right, they organize the ball game professional team that exists in Xcaret, right? And so here in California, or rather in the United States, we have delegations in Nevada, which is the state delegate of Nevada is also our president. He is our national representative, Marco Antonio Chavez. And we have another delegation in New Mexico, organized by a delegate by the name of Curly, who is an archaeologist. And we also have another state delegate in Utah. And so it's very important that, again, we understand, again, the objective. This is not very, the uniforms are very traditional. They're cowhide. Or just hide in general, and then they have leather belts, and so this is known as a fajado, right? And so the bota, right? And then it's again, there are different ways in which we serve the ball. In many different ways. You see, this is an image of our youth, right, who is hitting the ball, right? Usually they take a little bit of air, they jump up, and they hit the ball. And so we have various players. We have male and female players. Usually our players will wear body makeup, right? Some of our players have also had the opportunity to compete internationally, right? So we have various players that are male and female. We have teenagers, right? Like I said, we have had the opportunity to compete internationally. The team that exists, that was first established in the city of San Fernando, is known as It's Papalot, and they placed third at our first international tournament in Belize in December of last year. Right, we had the honor and the opportunity to compete. This is Armando Osario Scanga, who is refereeing. Right, we are hoping that the future will definitely hold, a lot of prosperity for this sport. We are trying to promote it here, not only in California, but throughout the United States. I would also like to say that all of our photographs are also taken by Tere, who is known as Photo Rebel, right? So she's a fantastic photographer, and she documents a lot of the youth and the events that we do. We have our Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel. And so a lot of the times we try to encourage the youth to get out there and to practice. And sometimes we have them try to hit the soccer ball in order to kind of, it's not the same. Even the 2 pound ball that we have for youth, right, is a lot heavier than a soccer ball, because a soccer ball is not even it doesn't weigh even a pound. So we have young girls and we have young boys also playing and participating, right? So in addition to that, again, I want us to be able to see how a lot of our youth, we are trying to encourage them. We outreach to at-risk youth, and we try to go out into the community. Everything that we do is usually, free to the students, to the youth. The regalia, we try to make it ourselves in hopes that the youth themselves have an opportunity to also learn how to make it, and learn this particular tradition again, which is sacred to what we are doing in trying to preserve this traditional sport. Now, I would also like to uh, have an opportunity to be able to share um, uh, our 1 year anniversary commemoration video. Um, This video is also available on YouTube through our YouTube channel, right? It's known as California Mesoamerican Ball Game Delegation and San Fernando Valley Team, Eats Papalot. This is Ahupeme USA 1 year anniversary video. again, I would like to thank everybody for giving us the opportunity to participate at the fifth year annual summit. So thank you very much. Again, my name is RaulHerrera, and feel free to reach out to us. We again are on Instagram at ca dot a j u PEME period USA. So it represents California dot Ahupeme dot USA. Thank you again. It is a pleasure and an honor to be a part of this year's event. Have a beautiful evening.